The Bofors 40mm anti-aircraft gun was a Swedish designed gun that saw service with Sweden, the British, USA, Germany, Japan and many other nations during World War II. It's without a doubt the best anti-aircraft gun of that caliber in the war. In 1928, the Swedish Navy made a proposal for modernization of the Navy. Among the suggestions were a 40mm autocannon to augment the air defenses. The Navy got an okay and they sent this requirement to Bofors. And Bofors appointed engineer Victor Hammar for this task. Working during 1929, he and his team came up with a semi-automatic cannon that could fire 50 shots per minute. But in 1931-32 they had managed to create a working fully automatic gun that could fire 120 to 130 shots per minute. And the Bofors gun was born. The first model was accepted in 1932 for the Navy, called the M32, and the Army accepted their version in 1936, called the M36. It took about 30,000 man-hours to complete the project. The gun had a maximum range of 7,200 meters and the projectile weighed around 0.9 kilos with a muzzle velocity of between 880 to 960 meters per second. There were several variants with one barrel, two barrels, different lengths of the barrels, so the figures vary somewhat. A minimum crew for this gun is 2 persons for aiming and firing the gun. 1 person takes care of the elevation and firing and 1 for the traverse. You also need a loader that loads the 4 round clips. Usually you would also have a director in charge of selecting target and, not unusual, a secondary loader. You could change the barrel if they started to overheat and that would take under 1 minute. I have seen some figures stating it could take around 20 seconds to change a barrel. In 1935 they showed off the gun in Belgium, and so impressed were the military that France, Belgium, England among others showed interest or placed orders. In 1937 the British Army RAF got the gun, and later the Navy also incorporated it in anti-aircraft defense on ships. 1938 USA showed its interest in the weapon, and in 1940 a gun was smuggled out with evacuated US citizens. So impressed were they with the gun that they started manufacturing it on license. Which made sense because Sweden was at that time more or less cut off from trade with the rest of the world, so a licensing agreement seems the best way to go. Chrysler manufactured most of the guns, about 60,000, and about twice as many barrels. Bofors and Sweden wasn't really happy with the licensing agreement, and they didn't really settle that until 1951. Germany used the gun also, but they never bought any guns from Sweden. Instead they used captured guns from Poland, France and Norway, and they also bought a couple of hundred from Hungary who were manufacturing it on license. In action the gun performed well. It was heavily used during the Battle of Britain, it defended the bridges over the Kungl Canal during the D-Day landings, and shot down 17 German airplanes that tried to knock out the bridges. Later it even managed to knock out a Messerschmitt 262 jet fighter from the sky, and I believe it's the first anti-aircraft that managed to do that. The USA made a survey in end of the war and found that 50% of all planes shot down between 44 and 45 was done by the Bofors gun. And the Navy was so happy with the gun that they telegraphed the serial number of the gun back to the factory after every kill. Or so the legend says. I'm not sure it's 100% true, they might have done it. It seems the gun had some problems with kamikaze attacks because the shell was rather small, so one hit wouldn't really knock out the plane, but it had a high rate of fire and it did get the job done. After World War II they did a modernization of the gun. in Sweden known as the M48, where they updated a lot of things, and among those the rate of fire that were then 240 shots per minute. In Sweden it was used, for example, in the Swedish Army Combat Vehicle 90, where they used an L70 version. This gun and variants of it are still in use to this day, which is pretty amazing for a gun designed all the way back in 1928.